get themselves into like, I gotta do it in this way, and that's where we're
all right.
here, like.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan Smith. I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator here at the Central Arkansas Library System. Thank you so much for joining me today for Microsoft Word Part 2, Styles, Mailings, and More. Before we get started, a couple of quick preliminary things to chat about. First of all, of course, if you have questions at any point, please let me know. Don't worry about if it feels like it might be a silly question. I'm not going to judge you on that. The point of a technology class is for you to learn useful things about technology. So if that's happening, then things are going great. And if that's not happening, if you're confused about what I'm saying or that sort of thing, then that's not as successful of a class. So please speak up. Let me know if you have questions. If you are here in Zoom, just use the chat. If you are joining us via live stream on Facebook, you'll use the comments like you normally would on any other post on Facebook. And on YouTube, you'll use the live chat, which will appear. If you're on a computer, it'll appear over to my right. If you are on a mobile device, then the live chat is going to show up probably down below the video. The other big thing is there's the address there for the example files, cals.click/word2 files. It's there on the screen. Let's go ahead. I'm actually going to download that myself because I'm not 100% sure that the example files are on this. So I'll actually walk you through that really quick. Let's see. Let's dive into it. Okay, so there we go. Oh, settings need to be adjusted on this. All right. So we're going to head to that address, cals.click/word2 files, and that'll take us through to our digital classroom area here where you can download the example files. I'm going to click on that link and click on the file to open it up, the little zip file, and it should give you these documents right here. And I'll go ahead up at the top where it says extract. I'm going to click on compress folder tools there. And my computer is going to have a moment to itself to think, just process its feelings about the class today. All right, I'll click extract all and extract. Okay, cool. So there we have it. All right, I've got the example files unzipped and we're ready to go. So let me give you a little overview of what we're going to be doing today. First of all, we will be, let's see, actually let me pull my notes back up here. Okay, there we go. Excellent. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to talk about formatting and using formatting themes, styles, and style sets in our documents, basically to make your document look a little more nice and polished. These are really, really useful tools, and they're super easy to use. So we'll dig in on that. Then we'll be talking about tools that Word offers for collaboration and review. So if you are editing a document for someone or someone's editing a document for you, you can use these tools to kind of to make that process a little bit smoother. And then finally, we'll talk about mail merges. Mail merges are a really useful way to make sure that, or to create a document where you can, to create a document with essentially blanks that Word will fill in with specific details to personalize the document for each recipient. So if you've if you've ever received a letter from some company, then you can, and it said "Dear" and then your name at the top, even though they sent it to a couple hundred people or a few thousand people. That was accomplished using a mail merge. So we're going to talk about how to make that happen. So let's do this. The first thing that I want to do, the first example file that I'm going to open up here is the one called desertflowers.docx. So I'm going to double click on that. And that is going to open up Word. Apparently on my other monitor here, but we'll fix that. It's going to open up Word, and it's going to give us this situation right here. Now you'll notice it says protected view, blah, 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 and there's a button that says enable editing. You might have a different button that'll say allow or something like that, depending on what version of Word you're using. But regardless, all I need to do is click enable editing or whatever the button is here in that yellow strip, and it should give me the ability to edit the document. Oh, I forgot this was still on from last week, my little formatting marks. I'm going to click that to hide those. Okay, so with this document, we're going to be talking about how to use styles, style sets, and themes to change the way that your document looks and make it easier to navigate. So this particular document was downloaded from Project Gutenberg, which is a pretty cool website that gives you the ability to, or that has a lot of free books that you can download. Hey, come on in. Let's see. Oh, that one's signed in right there. So yeah. And then well, let's see if the files are on there. If not, I'll help you download them really quick. So if you go to classroom files there. By the way, I said this last week, but of course, if, just, oh, hang on, got it. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, it should be okay. I don't know why it's doing that. Sometimes they do that, though. So I said this last week, but I am using Word 2013 here in the classroom. If you have a newer version of Word at home or at your office or whatever, no big deal. It'll work just the same. It's not all that different at all. Okay, so what this is a public domain book that I downloaded a part of. This is the first kind of introductory chapter. This is a book called Flowers of the Southwest Deserts, which was published by the Parks Service, and so it is in the public domain. It's something we can use for free and distribute copies of as much as we want. What I've done here, I've got a bunch of, and you'll see if I scroll down through this, of course, we've got our title here, our author, and our illustrator. And then as we continue to scroll, you'll notice it's kind of an unbroken block of text here. Now we do have some section headings like this, the desert, what and where is it, and that sort of thing, but they're not very well marked. In fact, if you were scrolling through this fast enough, you would never notice those section headings, and honestly, you would probably assume that it was just part of the text. It was a short paragraph. If again, if you were moving fast enough that you didn't necessarily read the content of it. So, what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of style to this. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One is aesthetic, although that's, saying it's just aesthetic sounds maybe a little dismissive, but honestly, in many situations, making your document look nice is also going to accomplish a lot of the goals that you wrote the document for. So, for example, if it's a document for a customer or a prospective customer, then having a document that looks nice and is pleasant to read could make the difference between making a sale or not. Or if it's your resume, you better make sure that that document looks good, right? Things like that are a lot of times pretty important when you're writing a document. So making it look a little nicer can make a big difference in and of itself. But beyond that, we're also going to make this document easier to read as we apply these styles. And I'll show you what I mean here in a sec. But it'll be easier for our audience or our prospective audience to get around in the document, figure out where they are, and digest the content of our document. So let's start up here. Okay, we've got our title, we've got our author and our illustrator. We're going to come back to this, but we have a section heading here right away. How to use this booklet. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select it. So all I need to do is hold the mouse button down and drag, like we talked about last week, or you can hold the shift key while moving from left to right or right to left with your arrow keys. That will work too. But regardless, we want to get this text selected, and it'll kind of be shaded in gray here. And then once it's selected, I'm going to come up here to the top, and I'm going to click on heading 1. When I do, you'll notice a bunch of things happen all at once. So we talked last week about some of these settings up here, right? We've got our font, we've got our font size, we've got our capitalization, we have our bold, italics, underlining, strike through, subscript, and superscript. We have the colors and all these like text effects and typography, and all of this stuff. So we talked about all that last week a little bit. And if I wanted to make my text look like this, then it's not that hard to, it's not that hard to just do that, to go up here. You'll notice it's been centered, so I would need to come up here and center the text with this button. It's still Times New Roman, so the font actually hasn't changed. It's 24 as the size, so I could just click 24 in the drop-down menu. It's bold, so I can bold it. But if I'm doing that over and over again for every single section heading in this document, that's going to get pretty annoying pretty quickly. So what I want to do instead is I want to use these styles to make it happen. Not only is the not only does it save me time, so rather than going, okay, it's 24 point, it's bold, it's Times New Roman, it's centered, all that stuff, instead of doing each of those things individually, I can do them all at once. And that saves me time, obviously. But beyond that, this helps me be consistent as well. Because if I'm going through and I'm trying to make each header in my document look this way, what if I accidentally forget to bold it in a couple of the, for a couple of the headings? Or what if I forget to center the text for a few headings or whatever? Then those are going to stick out like a sore thumb, and my document is going to look, well, it's going to look polished until they get to those points, and then it's going to be like, oh, what's this? Somebody made a mistake here. And it pulls them out of focusing on the content of your document, and now suddenly they're focused on essentially your editorial process. So we don't want that. We want them to be focused on what the content actually is. So let's go down here and let's change the headings in some of these other sections of the document as well. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit and wait, I think I missed one. Nope, okay. We have plant names, and then be serious about plant names, but not too serious. So plant names is the actual name of the section. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit heading 1. And then we have be serious about plant names, but not too serious. That's kind of a, I don't know, like a subtitle for this section, I guess. So I'm going to select this. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change it to a different style. I do want it to stand out from the rest of the document because this isn't a complete sentence. Well, I guess it is a complete sentence, but it doesn't have a period at the end, and it's not meant to stand alone as part of the regular text. It's meant to be something else. So what I'm going to do is, now that I've got that selected, I'm going to come up to the top here, and I've got these different style options. But I'm going to click this little drop-down arrow right here that says that's the More button in Word's terminology. When I click, whoops, that's the wrong thing. I'm going to undo that. When I click on the More button, it's going to expand this list of options out so that I can see all the different styles that I could potentially apply to this same bit of text here. So I've got a lot of different ones. I actually have a subtitle one. So let's just go with that. Why not? So I'll click subtitle. And that changes the font from Times New Roman, which is what it was before, to Calibri. The font size is 11. And we've got like some spacing things going on here too. I'm not sure what all that's about, but they've tweaked the spacing between characters a little bit in this spot. So now that I've done that, so I've come up here, I hit the little drop-down arrow, and I chose subtitle as my options, or as my option. That's got it to this this particular setting. Now, depending on how your computer is set up, it may change this a little bit. There may be some slight differences, but that's okay. So let's find the rest of these headings really quickly for these sections. Here's the desert. What and where is it? I'll select that one. Come up here and hit heading 1. National parks and monuments is wildflower sanctuaries. Desert plants. And acknowledgements. All right, so all of those are set up and looking good. So let's see. I'm going to give folks just a moment to sort that out, and then we'll kind of go to the next step here. So as I mentioned, this is helpful for our audience as they're reading our document. One way that that's true is, as human beings, we like to have things in kind of smaller chunks. Seeing a big wall of text and not really having any like markers or signposts for where we are in the document can be a little bit frustrating, a little disorienting. So, so these headings serve as really helpful markers for like, oh, okay, I'm in this section of the document now, and that sort of thing. So any document that's that's long-ish, you probably want to divide up into sections this way, even if it's not something like this one where it already happens to have sections. They just kind of blend in visually. But marking things as, marking headers like this serves another helpful purpose in terms of helping your audience navigate. So let me show you this. When I go to select up here at the top and click on that and click selection pane. Oh, sorry, that's not it. Not the selection pane. The navigation pane is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to click on find actually. Now, when I click find here, one thing about that is it's going to slide out this little navigation sidebar here, the navigation pane. And it's going to default to this option where it allows me to search for specific text inside of the document. And because I had the word acknowledgement selected, it's actually just going to throw it into the search box here, so it can find the other parts, or find any other occurrences of the word acknowledgements. But I could click the X over here, and I could search for like cactus or something, and it'll show me each and every place in which the word cactus appears in my document. So here on page 3, here on page 6, and then here on page 6 as well. So that's helpful. And you can also see a preview of the pages if you click this Pages tab here. But the main thing I want to show you in the navigation pane is the Headings tab over here. When I click on the Headings tab, you'll see I suddenly have, oh, okay, I'm going to clear this results thing, so I'm going to come up here where it says cactus and just hit the X, so that way I'm not searching for anything and it's not as visually confusing. Okay, so now I've got so under this Headings tab, because I marked each of those section headers as heading 1, I have how to use this booklet, plant names, the desert, what and where is it, national parks and monuments as wildflower sanctuaries, desert plants, and acknowledgements. And if I want to go to one of these sections, all I have to do is click the name of it over here in the navigation pane, and it scrolls right to it. So that's really handy for me as I'm editing the document or trying to write it. And it's really handy for my audience if I'm sending them the Word document version of this this document. So that's extremely convenient. One key thing to know about these headings, though, is they actually have kind of a hierarchy to them. So let's say that I want to add a heading, kind of a subheading, into this section right here. I'm on page 6 under National Parks and Monuments as Wildflower Sanctuaries. If I scroll down a little bit, and let's say I want to add a subheading that says New Mexico right here above this thing. I'm going to come over here and click near the beginning of this paragraph, go to the beginning of the paragraph with my arrow keys, and then I'll press Enter on my keyboard. What that's going to do is move this down, and now I have an extra line here. And I'm going to come up to the top, and I'm going to click on Heading 2. When I do, you'll notice I get a wider space here, and I get the cursor kind of blinking in the middle of the document. And now I can add my heading. New Mexico. And there we have it. So you'll notice when I selected heading 2, the text is a little bit smaller. And you'll notice over here, I have national parks and monuments as wildflower sanctuaries, and then indented underneath it is New Mexico. So by using these heading styles consistently throughout the document, can I, oh, Tracy, yeah, can I repeat which part from the beginning? What did you miss? Were there audio problems or, okay. So all I did was, hang on, I'll undo it and I'll show you again. So what I did was I made an extra line here in between these two paragraphs. And then I went up here and clicked on heading 2 at the top. And then I just typed the name of my heading. Because I selected heading 2 before I started typing, it automatically applied that style to the text as I was typing it, rather than me having to go in and mark it separately as a heading. If I typed it in plain body text, then I would have to mark it as a heading separately, like we did with the main section headings. But in this case, I just selected heading 2 before I typed anything, and that gave me the style. Absolutely. So if you're using these heading styles consistently throughout your document, then in this headings area, what you're going to be able to do, or you're going to be able to see essentially an outline of your document, and you're going to be able to jump straight to the correct pieces of it in order to get there. And in fact, we're not going to go in detail on this, but I will tell you as well, on the References tab here, we've got the option of a table where you can generate a table of contents automatically, and it'll generate that based on your section headings and subsection headings and so on and so forth. So you can create a table of contents, you can use it to link to different parts of your document, and then and it'll create it based on those headings and subheadings. So yeah, glad that was what you needed, Tracy. It's always difficult to say, wait a minute, there was one part that I missed. Yeah, that's really useful, really useful. So let's see, what else? So that's styles. Let me I'll kind of show you really quickly the other. There are a lot of different options here. Oh, excuse me, goodness. The baby is teething, y'all. There are a lot of different options here. If you wanted to, to emphasize something with bold or italics or even a different color, you can do that. The key thing about this is, rather than changing those options directly yourself up here in the font area, you can, if you stick to these styles, what's going to happen is it's going to make your document look more consistent throughout, because whenever you bold or italicize or whatever, it's going to be in the same exact style as what you're working, or as the rest of the document. And so that's going to make it look nice and polished for you. But let's say you aren't a fan of this particular style. There are a few different ways to go about changing it. One simple way is, let's say, for example, with the heading 1 headers, that I don't want them to be black like the rest of the text. I want them to be a different color so they stand out a little bit more. What I can do to make that happen, well, there are a couple of different ways to make that happen. One option is I can just select a header, and I can make the changes to it, and then kind of roll them out to the rest of the document. So for example, let's say I wanted it to be this orange. I'll select the orange color here under my text color. So I'm going up here to the the A with the red swatch, clicking that arrow next to it, and that gives me a drop-down menu for colors. And then I'll come down here and I'll click on the color that I need. So now that I've changed this, it looks the way I wanted it to, but if I scroll around, you'll notice none of the other ones have changed. So there's one more step in order to apply this to our to the rest of the heading 1 headers in our document. The way that works is I just right-click. Actually, sorry, excuse me, not there. I right-click on where it says heading 1 with this selected, and I click Update Heading 1 to match selection. And when I do that, all of the other heading 1s have changed accordingly. So they'll all match up. Anywhere that text is marked as heading 1, it's going to match that text that I changed with that setting. So that's one really easy way to do it. Another way that I can do it is by directly editing the style. So I'm going to come up here to the top, right-click on where it says heading 1, and I'm going to click Modify. When I do that, you'll notice I now get all of the different settings for this style. So I've got my font size, bold, italics, underlining. I've got the color. I have whether it's centered, aligned left, aligned right, or justified. I have my line spacing here. I've got some other spacing stuff. I've got indentation. And then a bunch of settings here. And when I click on Format, I can change a lot more stuff. So you can really go to town with this. We're not going to get quite that deep, but just know that if you don't see an option here that you want, it's probably in this Format menu. And then I have the option to, so let's say that I wanted this underlined. There we go. And then I have the option Add to the Styles Gallery, automatically update. And then key things here. I don't recommend using these options right now, but or changing this option right now. But there's only in this document versus new documents based on this template. If you change this, if you click new documents based on this template and then you click OK, what's going to happen is it will save whatever changes you've made to that style, and those changes will apply anytime someone creates, you or someone else creates a new document on this computer. So you want to make sure that you're obviously that you're using that only if you're really sure. I'm going to leave these settings as is, and I'm going to click OK. And now, again, you'll notice all of my heading 1s have been updated. So that's all well and good, but let's say that I want to tweak it even more. I want to make it look more different than it is, because right now Times New Roman is almost the only font that we're using, and there's really not, a whole lot of options here. What I want to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on the Design tab at the top. When I click on the Design tab, it gives me a bunch of different little boxes here. There's a button called Themes, and there's colors, fonts, and a bunch of other stuff over here. So what the Design tab does is it allows us to completely change all the styles that are associated with our document at the same time. So we do that by means of style sets and themes. So first, style sets are, we have this document style set as the selected thing right now. So we made a few changes to the way that our styles look in this particular document. This document style set is where that's saved. If we wanted to keep it, it says you can save this document's current style set and use it in other documents by right-clicking and then clicking Save. So we could do that if we wanted to apply that to, or if we want to have that available for other documents in the future. Next to that, though, we've got a bunch of built-in style sets that Word gives us. So this one is called Basic Elegant. When I click on that, it changes everything in here. We now have our heading 1s are this dark blue, and they're all in Calibri Light. My heading 2 here is also in Calibri Light. The rest of the document is just in Calibri. You'll notice it says body in parentheses here. The reason that it says that is that Calibri is the font that's associated with the normal style up here in this particular style set. So, so if I were to change style sets again, the font that says body next to it might also change, because it's essentially whichever is the default font based on the style set that you're using. So instead of orange underlined text in Times New Roman, I now have blue or dark blue text, non-underlined. It's not bold, 18-point font rather than 24, and the font is Calibri Light rather than Times New Roman. I can change the design more though. I've got all these other options here. This one's called Basic Simple. There's one called Black and White, capitalized. So you'll notice I get all caps in these headings here. And let's see, this one changes to blue. If I hit the More button, I can see a bunch of them. This one puts all of your headers in little boxes and changes it to white text inside of the box. So that's a little bit different. This one's called Shaded. And then the heading 2s are a lighter colored box than the heading 1s. And so, so you have a bunch of different options with these built-in style sets. And of course, you can create your own if you want to. Next to that, though, is this Themes button. So if I'm like, I don't like any of these, I can click on the Themes button, and suddenly I have even more options. Under this Themes button, I have a bunch of different types of themes. This one's called Facet. Let's click on that one. I'll see how that goes. Okay, so with this one, I'm still using the same style set called Shaded inside of this theme, but instead of the blue, I now have light green. And then if I scroll up to my heading 1, dark green. Let's see what the title looks like. I'm going to go all the way to the top. I'm going to select this here. It says Flowers of the Southwest Deserts. I'm going to click Home, the Home tab, and I'm going to click the More and click on Title. That's going to give me a title style that goes along with the rest of my style set. Nice. So by changing themes, basically, so in the Design tab, when you change themes, what happens is, over here, you'll notice I have colors, fonts, paragraph spacing, effects, and this button called Set as Default. Don't click on that. But you've got this. So when I click on themes here, basically what I'm changing is the fonts that are associated with my style sets. So, for example, this one's called Wood Type. If I click on this, you'll notice all my my heading fonts change to this sort of like cowboy font, Rockwell. What is this? Rockwell condensed. So my header fonts change to that, and my body font changes to just Rockwell. So I've changed the fonts that are associated with my style sets, but I still have a bunch of different style sets to choose from. I've also changed the color scheme. So you'll notice instead of using like the blue and the various blues that I had before, I now have like orange and red and things like that. My paragraph spacing will change with the themes, and these effects, where it adds specific effects like shadows or kind of a glassy look, those sorts of things, to certain objects in my document. Those will change with the themes as well. You can even create your own themes if you click on Customize Colors there. You change your fonts to whatever you want, to a different set of fonts. Basically, you have one font for header text, and one font for body text. So in this situation, we've got, so this one is, for example, this, this set of fonts here is Century Gothic for the headers and Palatino Linotype for the body text. So you can create your own sets of fonts and choose one for headers and one for body text. You have your paragraph spacing. You have and you can change your effects however you want them to be. So basically, all of that stuff constitutes a theme. And if I come over here and click on themes, then I can click Save Current Theme, and that will create my own theme that I can name and everything like that. And that way I can get back to it anytime I want. This is really nice if you're doing, say, marketing things and you want to stick with the branding. It's really helpful for that because you can literally create a theme that has that uses your brand's fonts and colors and everything, and that way you don't have to worry about and then you can automatically apply it to your document. So that's really, really useful. And there are some other things you can tweak here. You can add a watermark to your pages. You can change the color of the pages, although I don't recommend doing that for the most part because Word is going to try to print that color background, and that's going to use a lot of ink. And then you can add a border around your pages if you want to as well. So if you come up with one that you really, really like and that you're going to be using regularly, you do have this option to set as default. Don't do that on these computers. Probably don't do it on your computer for now at least. But if you click on that, whatever your style set and theme that you currently have selected are, then those are going to be the default. Those are going to be the default options. Those are going to be the selected options right when you open up, whenever you open up a new document on this computer. Tracy, yes, this is being live streamed to the CAL's Facebook page and the CAL's YouTube channel. If you go to cals.link/YouTube, you'll be able to find them a little later on. Hey, Matthew. Yeah, we've got. So if you head to that link, you can find the CAL's YouTube channel, and you can circle back and rewatch anytime you want. And the downloads are always available later on as well. So let's see. So that is our style sets, and themes. What questions do y'all have for me before we move on to our collaboration and review stuff? Actually, while y'all are potentially typing questions, I need to step away for just a moment, but I will be right back. Sorry, y'all. Okay, cool. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so Tracy did have a question here in chat. Is there a way to delete or edit repetitive words? So it depends on what you mean, but I mean, yeah, there are several different ways you could do something like that. If you're trying to just narrow down what word, like, if you're like, they sure used the word difficult a lot, then you could find the word difficult and replace it with hard or touchy or troubling or whatever. You could use the navigation pane over here. So you would click on the Home tab, you click on Find, and then type it in, and that will allow you to find all of the instances where that word occurred and then replace it. But obviously, if you just replace it with one particular word, then that word's going to be repetitive. You could, so you could either take it point by point and just say, okay, let's look at all the instances of the word difficult and delete some and rephrase other things and just drop in synonyms in other spots, that sort of stuff. If, for example, you misspelled someone's name every time you used it throughout an entire document, this is really good for that. You can actually click Replace up here at the top. And what it's going to do is give you this Find and Replace dialog box. And you can type in the word you want and then replace it with something else. Click Replace, and it'll go instance by instance and replace the words, replace that word with a new one. If you just wanted to use a synonym in half the situations or something like that, you could do it pretty easily with this. So you could go, we'll replace cactus with prickly plant. And if I hit replace, then it's going to take me to an instance of the word cactus, and I could hit replace. And then it's going to take me to the next instance of the word cactus. And let's say I don't want to do it because this is a proper name, organ pipe cactus. I'll just hit Find Next, and that'll skip over that one. And then if I wanted to replace this one, I could, or whatever. So yeah, there's several different options there. This Find and Replace, oh, that's so useful when you find you accidentally misspelled something a ton of times. Oh, yeesh. Oh, good. Okay, I'm glad that answered the question. So let's talk a little bit about collaboration and review tools here. We'll use this same document as our example. I'm going to hit the X, or I did hit the X up there in the navigation pane there to get rid of it because we won't need it for right now. But let's say that I'm editing this document for somebody else. I get this in and I'm like, oh, it looks pretty good. I just have a few notes. So a lot of times what will happen is folks will reply an email. They'll basically you'll send somebody your document and they'll come back and in the body of the Okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. My microphone receiver died for some reason, so I've changed the batteries, and hopefully that's going to do the trick. Okay, so yeah. So a lot of times, if you're editing for someone, you send them a copy of your document, or they send you a copy of your document. You email them back, and you say like, okay, here's some feedback. You might want to change this, and so on and so forth. But you kind of have to describe where you are. So you're like, on page 2, there, you said this thing, but I think it would make more sense to say that thing, or whatever the case may be. So if, in that type of situation, it's helpful to have a way to give that feedback directly in the document instead of having to worry about about having them find the place that you're talking about in your document. So let me show you some of those tools. The first one, so we're going to go to the Review tab here. The Review tab is where we go to do all this editing type stuff. And we're going to look at a few different things here. The first one is comments. So comments, if I come up here to the top, and let's say that I just want to tell them, the original author, I think this paragraph's too long. You might need to cut it down or something like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this paragraph. And I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to click on New Comment. When I do, I get this thing right here. So it's going to show my name and my picture. And it's got a little blinking cursor there so that I can start typing my feedback. So I'm going to say, this paragraph is a little long, might need to cut a couple sentences. There we go. Beautiful. So I've got I've added my comment there, and I could send it back to them. And as they're scrolling through, they'll see this little speech bubble. Depending on the settings they have set up in Word, they can see this little speech bubble and they can click on it, and it'll pop up with a comment. Or up here at the top, they can change this setting from simple markup to all markup, and that's going to show it kind of more like this. We also have no markup and original, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then let's see. So I can kind of give more general feedback with the comments. The comments are a really useful tool for general feedback about your document and and that sort of thing. So I can describe specific problems, or I can say, you might want to cut a couple of sentences here. Or I can say like, you probably need a conclusion for this section, or whatever. Okay, so once my person that I'm editing for receives this, as they're looking through the comments, for one thing, they can use these buttons right here that say Previous and Next to move between comments. So that way they don't have to scroll through the document trying to locate them. They can just jump directly to each one. When they come across a comment, they have a few different options. One option is they can delete the comment if they're done with it. Another option, if I click this drop-down arrow, they can actually delete all comments in the document once they've seen them all. They also have the option to right-click on this and click Mark Comment Done. So that won't remove the comment altogether, but it will say, yeah, I've taken that feedback on board and done something with it or not, who knows. And I can uncheck that if I want to bring it back to normal. They can also reply. So if I come over here and click this button, then I get a reply. You'll notice it's kind of indented a little bit underneath the original comment. And I could say, there we go. Wonderful. So we can have a conversation back and forth. This is particularly useful for documents that are stored in some type of cloud storage on OneDrive or Microsoft SharePoint, because you can actually do, you can essentially have a real-time chat conversation in comments as you're working on a document together. And that can be really, really handy if you're trying to quickly knock out something, but you need more than just one person's input or feedback or whatever. And that way you don't even have to send the document back and forth. If you both have access to it online, then you can use these comments to directly get in there and adjust it together. So another thing that they can do, they can delete the comment from this right-click menu as well. So that's comments. Comments are really useful for general editorial feedback. And kind of telling people, hey, you might want to tweak this thing, or, we need some sort of a thesis statement, or whatever the case may be. For more specific kinds of feedback, though, Word offers us a different tool, and that is change tracking. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to come up here to the top, and I'm going to click this little button that's labeled Track Changes. Now, if I click just the button with the icon here, then that's going to turn Change Tracking on, and the button turns blue. If I click the drop-down arrow next to it, then Track Changes is also in this drop-down menu, and there's an option to lock tracking so that change tracking can be essentially permanently turned on, or at least turned on until you turn it off, and you can add a password to it. So that way folks aren't turning change tracking off when you don't want them to, and making changes that you won't be able to review very easily. So in order to use this, now that change tracking is on, our button's highlighted in blue, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and, for instance, in this booklet we are dealing with desert flowers, and that's in all caps, probably because this was plain text originally. I want to change this, so I want to make it bold, italics instead of all caps. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the word desert. You'll notice when I do that, instead of getting rid of it altogether like it normally does, it's crossed out. That's because this all markup drop-down box, or drop-down is selected here. If I come back up here and I click simple markup, then it's going to give me kind of more what I expect. And then I'm going to type the word, I'm going to do Control-I, or I can go to the Home tab and click the italics button to italicize, and I'm going to type desert in lowercase. In this booklet, we are dealing with desert flowers. Okay, let's see. Let's add an item to this list here. There we go. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and delete a sentence here. Whoop. And actually, let's go ahead and replace. Let's throw some in here. We'll say it's strongly encouraged. And instead of conquer, I'm going to use the word overcome. There we go. Beautiful. All right. So I've made a bunch of changes, editorial changes to this document. You can't really see them other than you'll notice I have these little red lines over to the left of where the changes have been made. If I'm scrolling through the document and I want to quickly see where the changes are, then I can look for those red lines. Or the easier way to do this, and the way that I typically prefer, is I'm going to start at the top of the document. So I'm just going to click here in the title somewhere. I'm going to go back to the Review tab, and I'm going to click Next to look for the next change that's been made in my document. When I click Next, it's actually going to take me to this comment. I'm going to right-click and mark the comment as done. All right, and then I'll exit this. And Next. Come on. Out of my way. Next. There we go. Okay. So over here I have this revisions pane that's showing me what the changes were that I made. Nathan Smith deleted, all caps desert. Nathan Smith inserted, desert in italics here. But instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this reviewing pane, and I'm going to click at the top all markup in this drop-down box. What that's going to do is it's going to show me directly the changes that were made here. So when I turn that on, you'll notice I get desert in all caps, but it's crossed out, and then desert in italics underlined here. So that shows me essentially two different changes were made here. Change number one is deleting the word desert in all caps. So when I hit next, it's going to select that. And I have the option to either accept the change or reject it. If I accept the change, then desert in all caps permanently disappears, and that part is done. But now I still have, it's still highlighted in red, the word desert in italics right here. The reason for that is that I did, even though you can do them at the same time, the result of my actions here were to create two separate edits. The first edit was removing the word desert in all caps. The second edit was to replace it with the italicized version in lowercase. So I'm going to hit accept to go with the italicized version as well, and there it is. Those changes are official. Okay, so the next change, it's taken me down to the next change here. The next change is adding essentially a space right here. And then coming down here and adding the desert planet of Tatooine as an option, or as a list item here. I'm going to hit accept. And now that's been added to the end of the list here. The next place that it's taken me is to this comment. I'm just going to hit next to skip over that. And then down here, this sentence was deleted. Now let's say that I don't want that. I'm like, that sentence is important. We really need it. And so what I'm going to do is come up here to the top and I'm going to click reject. And that is going to remove the red and the strike through from this sentence and put it back the way that it was initially. That my editor tried to delete that sentence, but I did not let them. I rejected the edit, and now it's back to where it should be. I'll hit accept for strongly, and let's say I like conquer better. So I'm going to hit reject to reject the deletion of the word conquer, and I'm going to hit reject again to reject the addition of the word overcome in its place. So now I've gone through all the edits. And again, you could go back and forth in comments and that sort of thing as much as you need to. The goal or the reason that this, but you can, when you do this, you can basically make all of your edits inside of the Word document and then just reply to the person who sent it to you or send it off to someone. Just make sure you save, send the Word document on to the person who needs to see the edits, and then they can see exactly where the changes are made. They can accept or reject if they are in a position to do that. And so that's all of that is a really easy way to give editorial feedback to someone that you're working with, or to get editorial feedback from someone else. In a previous job, I worked at the legal department at our company a lot, and they would send me, if I had a letter that I was going to send to a customer, I would write it, and they would send me the edits in this format. And it was very easy to kind of go through and go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, or whatever. So that is your collaboration and review tools. What questions do y'all have for me about that before we move into mail merges? Oh, good question I forgot to touch on. How do you turn off the change tracking? Just come up here and click the button again, just like you did to turn it on. And that once you turn it off, any changes that you make will be permanent changes that don't need to be reviewed. So yeah, it's super easy. All right, well, let's dive into mail merges. So I'm going to close this document. I'll just hit the X and say don't save. And I'm going to open, for this example, is customerorders.xlsx. And come on now. Oh, sorry, that's not right. That's not what I wanted. I do need that, but not right now. That's the Excel document. So I'll close that up. Sorry, y'all. And I'm going to go into mailmerge.docx. Okay, so again, I'm going to enable editing or click allow or whatever up at the top. And here is our example letter. Okay, in our example letter, we've got we're sending out this letter to our customers. Now we're going to pretend, for the sake of this example, that the year is 2020 because that's the date that we have at the top here. And that'll be important a little bit later. But basically, this is a letter to some customers for our fake business. And we're saying, we're glad you become a customer with us this year. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order with us. Just use the offer code US20 on our website when placing your order. And then the rest of the letter, until you get to the very bottom, is actually the first couple of paragraphs of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, just to make the letter look nice and long. And then you have, we hope you take advantage of our special offer for you and enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. Sincerely, Jojo, your Splat Inc. sales associate. So what we want to do here is we want to create a version of this letter that's personalized to each person who's going to receive it, each customer that's going to get this letter from us. So let me show you a few different, or let me show you what all you can do with that. We're going to create our mail merge. So the first thing is we're going to click on the Mailings tab. That's the first step. And then under the Mailings tab, there is a button that says Start Mail Merge. If you click on that, you can select a bunch of different types of documents, that you can use that you can create a mail merge in. I'm just going to leave this as is, but you can also just click letters in the menu if you want, because this is a letter. So we're going to be mail merging a letter. Hey. But if you were going to choose one of these other options, then you would probably select it from the menu here. By the way, there is the option for email messages. I want to point that out to you to give you a little caveat about this. If you are planning to use the mail merge option for emails, well, I would encourage you not to use this option. The reason being, there are some other ways to accomplish the same sort of thing in email by using email services like MailChimp or Constant Contact, those sorts of things. If you do this in Word, what's going to happen is you're going to write the email here in Word, which is a little weird in and of itself, but then you have to have the Word, or you have to have the Microsoft Outlook email client installed and signed into your email address. And then what it's going to do is when you finish the mail merge and you're ready to send out your email messages, Word is going to open up Outlook and say, hey, I've got a message for you to send out. And then Outlook is going to send out each individual message to each individual recipient. That, honestly, is a real hassle and causes a lot of problems, ties up your computer for a while. Even if you have a pretty nice computer, sending out merging the information together and then sending out each individual message is bound to be difficult and cause problems. So, I would encourage you not to use this option, this email option, because it's a little bit clunky and there are better ways to go about the same, to achieve the same effect. Anyway, next to this, we've got this select recipients drop-down box, and there are a few different options here. Option number one, type a new list. So it's literally going to give you a little thing where you can fill in, where you can create a table with information for your customers or whoever is going to be receiving your document. You also have use an existing list and choose from Outlook contacts. Now again, this is only if you use the Outlook desktop program to manage your contacts. If you use that to manage your contacts, then you're going to be able to access those contacts and you can mail merge with them. But most people don't use that. Even someone like me who uses the Outlook desktop client regularly, I don't use the contacts feature like at all. So you probably won't use that either. The best option usually is use an existing list. I'm going to click on that, and then it'll take me to this little dialog box where I can select a file. But I've got two kind of placeholder files here. One called plus connect to a new data source, or plus new SQL Server connection. So you would use those two shortcuts if you were connecting Word to certain types of databases, particularly online. Excuse me. In this case, though, I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my downloads and open up my example files here. And I'm going to double click on customerorders.xlsx. That's an Excel workbook that's got the information for each of my fake customers in it. So I've got a few different options here. The one I want to choose is the one that says order list $ in apostrophes here. And then there's a checkbox here that says first row of data contains column headers. In fact, it does. So I'm going to leave that checked and I'll click OK. And then basically nothing happens, but that's okay. We're going to make something happen here shortly. For now, though, we've loaded that up. Oh yeah, and actually you do get some of these buttons lighting up here where you can actually click on them. There's the option to edit the recipient list if you need to make tweaks to it, that sort of thing. But we're not going to do that. I will show you just briefly how this workbook is laid out, so that way you can see the information that we're giving to Word. I'm going to open it read only because Word has it open. And then if you look here, what we've got is an order number, a date, the amount that the customer paid, the number of items they ordered, their street address, city, state or province, zip code, country, their first name, their last name, their email address, their phone number, and the salesperson who sold them their order. So all of these are fake people. All this is fake information. But these are our customers here. Okay, I'm just going to minimize this in case we want to look at it again and get that out of the way too. And we'll go back to Word. By the way, if you want to switch quickly between programs, you can do that very easily. If you're on a Windows computer, what you want to do is hold down the Alt key at the bottom of your keyboard. There are two different Alt keys. Both of them are right next to the space bar. So hold down Alt and press Tab on the left-hand side of your keyboard. What that's going to do is, okay, I'm going to have to change these display settings because this is being really weird. Okay. There we go. All right, there we go. So now, I'll show you. If you hold Alt and press Tab, what it's going to do is open up this little box in the middle of your screen. As long as you're holding Alt, this will stay open. It'll open up this little box, and it'll show you all the windows that are open on your computer. If you keep holding Alt and hit Tab again, then it's going to move this little white box around the next open window. Tab again, it moves to the next one. Tab again, it moves to the next one, and so on and so forth. So if I wanted to switch quickly back to Excel, just hold Alt, press Tab a couple of times, and we'll get back to Excel. If I hit Alt, Tab again, I can go back to Word. Super duper easy. Okay, anyway, let's do this mail merge. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this address up here at the top with the address of the customer. So I've got 7779 Example Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, 72201. I'm just going to delete all of this. And then I'm going to come up to the top here where it says Address Block and click on that. When I click on that, it's going to give me this Insert Address Block dialog box. And I have Insert Recipient's Name in this format. So if, for example, the customer's name was Joshua Randall Jr., then it would put it in like this. But I could also select from any of these other options, Mr. Josh Q. Randall Jr., the Randall family, Joshua and Cynthia, Josh and Cynthia, Josh Randall Jr. and Cynthia Smith, etc., etc., etc. So I could have a bunch of different name formats. I'm going to stick with just the default one. Insert postal address. We do want the address here in this address block. So we're going to make sure that box is checked. And we're going to say only include the country or region if different than United States. So if we're sending it internationally, we're going to note the country code, but otherwise we're going to leave it off. And then down here, format address according to the destination country/region. That just makes good common sense. Let's format it in the way that their postal service expects it to be formatted, so that way we can make sure that it gets to the right place, all things being equal. Over here, it says, here's a preview from your recipient list. Azia Fikes, Falcon Crest 41837. So we got a problem here, obviously. This is not going to work. The full address is not here, and it's not written in the correct way, so we want to tweak this. What I'm going to do is come down here under where it says Correct Problems and click on Match Fields. So what this is going to do, now the reason we've got this is written out this way. If you look here, you'll notice first name, it says first. Last name, it says last. So these are our columns that are over here in Excel. So there's a first column here, and there's a last column here, and those are your first name and last name, just like Word correctly guessed. However, it did not correctly guess what all of the information was. We have suffix, we don't have that. Company, we don't have that on our spreadsheet. Address 1, that's going to be our street address for our customer, right? So if we look over here on the spreadsheet, The label for that, or the header for that particular column is street. So I'm going to Alt-Tab again, and this time I'm going to, where it says address 1, I'm going to click on that drop-down box, and I'm going to change it to street. There it is. And then address 2 we don't have. City is good. State is not matched. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to change it to state/province. Zip and country were identified correctly. So there's a few other things here. We got the email address, we got the phone number, there's some other stuff. But that's all we need. If I click, well, excuse me. There's a checkbox right here. I'm not going to use this time, but it says remember this matching for this set of data sources on this computer. If you use this spreadsheet to send things to customers all the time, or you expected to use it to send stuff to customers in the future, and you didn't want to have to fool with this again, you could check this box. I'm going to leave it unchecked so that in future classes I can still do this example. I'll click OK. And now we see Azia Fikes, 3511 Old Ramp, Falcon Crest, Kentucky, 41837. That looks good. I'll click OK. And now I just get this little placeholder that says address block with little angle brackets next to it. So that's going to show me, this is where the address is going to go for each customer. Down below we have the date, and we have Dear Customer. We want to replace Dear Customer with a greeting that's personal to the one who's receiving the letter. So we're going to look for the greeting line button. So, well, actually, I'm going to click down here. Make sure you don't select the picture. If you do, it's no big deal, but make sure you don't select the picture. Make sure you get your cursor in here. I'm going to remove, this line of text, and I'm going to click greeting line up here at the top. When I click on that, I get Dear, and then again, I can choose the name format that I want. I'll stick with Joshua Randall Jr. And I can choose whether I want a comma or a colon or nothing at the end of the greeting line. There's an option for Dear Sir or Madam as a greeting line for invalid recipient names. And then down here, I can click through and see previews of what everything's going to look like. Make sure it's showing up the way that I want it to. Again, if I had problems with this, I could click Match Fields and I could adjust the settings there, but I don't need to this time. I'm just going to click OK. And now we have our greeting line placeholder here, or this is what we call a merge tag. Excuse me. So the next line is, we're glad you become a customer with us this year. Now, if you were to look at this data set, you'll notice there are a couple of different, there are a couple of different, we have several different types of dates. In particular, we've got 2020 dates and 2019 dates. So what I want to do in this situation is I want to leave out the dates, or I want to leave out the lines where the customer is on, where the customer placed their order in 2019, because this is a letter that's being sent out in 2020, and the first line of the letter says, we're glad you become a customer with us this year. So I want to skip over the customers who became customers with us last year, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'll put my cursor here just as, just to be in the right place, to kind of give me a little prompt of this is what we're looking for, or this is why this is happening. And I'm going to come up and click on Rules and click Skip Record If. When I do Skip Record If, I've got my field name, so this is my column, the name of the column that I'm looking at. And I'm going to choose date. And then our comparison is less than. And then down here under compare to, I'm going to go 01, 01, 20, 20. And I'll click OK. And now I have this skip record if. So what that's going to do is, it's not going to do anything obvious or visible to the customer when they receive the letter. But when Excel is looking through this list of customers and it's figuring out which ones to create a copy of the letter for, then what it's going to do is it'll look through and it'll say, okay, 2020, you get a letter, you get a letter, you get a letter. Oh, 2019. We're going to skip over this one. So we shouldn't have a copy of this letter for Catriona Spatz. We shouldn't have a copy of the letter for Catriona. It should skip over that and give us, and create a version for the next person on the list. So that's skip record if. We also have an option called if then else. You'll notice it says, we're glad you become a customer with us this year. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order with us. Just use the offer code US20 on our website when placing your order. Because of exchange rate, so you'll notice we also had customers from Canada and customers from the US. Because of exchange rates, we want to give our Canadian customers a slightly different offer and a different offer code to go with it. So I've selected this. What I'm going to do is right-click here and click Copy to copy all of this. I could also press Control-C on my keyboard. And then I'm going to come up here and click on Rules again and click If Then Else. When I click on that, I get this little dialog box here. The field that we're going to check in this rule is under field name, I'm going to choose country, comparison equal to, and then compare to US, like that. Make sure you don't put any periods or anything like that, because the country codes on the original spreadsheet are just either capital U, capital S, or capital C, capital A. And then where it says insert this text, I'm going to paste the text here. Now, unfortunately, for some weird reason, Word won't let me right-click in this blank. So I am going to have to use the keyboard shortcut to paste a copy of the sentence in there. So the keyboard shortcut, if you're on a Windows computer, is Control-V. So that's the Control key at the bottom left corner of your keyboard or the bottom right corner. I'm going to hold Control while pressing V as in Victor. When I do, it pastes that text in. By the way, if you're on a Mac, you'll want to use Command-V instead. It does the same exact thing. So if the customer's country code is US, then we'll give them the same placeholder text that we already had there. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order. Use the offer code US20. We need to also paste that into this, though, and tweak it. So I'm going to do Control-V again inside this box. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order. We're going to offer them $25 Canadian off of their next order. And over here where it says just use the offer code US20, obviously we're going to replace US20 with CA25. And then I'll click OK. So what that's going to do, it doesn't look any different, although if you click on it, you'll notice it shades it all in right away like this. But that's actually kind of a placeholder merge tag there. What it's showing me is, as Word is trying to create these merged versions of the document and it's looking through here, if it stumbles across, or when it gets to someone who lives in the US, then it's going to just fill in the regular text that we had there previously. Once it gets to someone from Canada, though, it's going to come back over, or it's going to come over and it's going to change this, replace this sentence, or these two sentences with, we'd love to offer you $25 off your next order. Just use the offer code CA25 on our website when placing your order. So, and you can flip through here to see whether it's working or not. If you use these little arrow buttons up here, then it is going to change that. For some reason, it only changes that and not any of the other stuff, like the other merge tags, but whatever. Okay, so last example here, I'm going to come down to the bottom. We have sincerely Jojo. Jojo's not a real sales associate with us. We want to replace Jojo's name with the real salesperson that they actually worked with. So I'm going to come up here and click on Insert Merge Field. I can either click the button, and that's going to give me a dialog box that pops up, or I can click the drop-down arrow and the words Insert Merge Field, and that's going to give me this drop-down menu. And I'll just click Salesperson. Whoops. Okay. Got rid of the line break there, so I'll hit Enter. There we go. So now we have that in place. Okay, so we've done that. We've tweaked our letter. We've got our merge fields in there to where we can, our merge tags in there to where we can see, to where we're ready to send out our letter. If I click Preview Results here, what it's going to do is it's going to switch over to a view where it's showing me each person's individual version of the letter. So I've got Azia Fikes. If I was being a little more fiddly, I would probably change the spacing here, but I'm not going to worry about that. We've got Abin Woodbury. This person is from Canada, and you'll notice we get the country code added on. We do get the $25 and the Canadian offer code versus the US one. Their salesperson was Ray. This salesperson was Ray. This one was Sadira. This is a US customer, so they're getting $20 off with the code US20, and so on and so forth. To finish this up, all we need to do is finish it and merge it. So there's a couple of different ways to go with this. One option is print documents. If you're going to be sending the documents directly to your printer to print out, then all I have to do is click Finish and Merge, print documents, set my print settings, and then it's going to come out of my printer. Each individual customized version is going to come out of my printer separately, and that'll be great. If I need to send the merged versions to someone else, or I want to be able to edit individual documents separately, like let's say that specifically Azia Fikes, I want to add an extra line or two to personalize it more for her, then I can click Edit Individual Documents, and Word is going to essentially create a new document that's all of the merged copies put together. So if I have 40 customers, I'm going to get 40 pages, one for each customer that are personalized to them, and then I can just send that one document to the printer, or I can, email it to someone or whatever I need to do. And that's mail merges. What questions do y'all have for me about anything we talked about today before we wrap it up? All right, I don't see anything. If you're typing, keep typing while I'm wrapping it up, and we'll tackle it. But thank you all so much for joining me. This is a fun class to do, and I'm glad you were here. If you do have questions that you think of later on, or you're like, well, it would take too long to type this, I don't want to type it all out right now, feel free to send me an email. You can email me, nsmith@cals.org. Well, I hope that y'all have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.